Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the Helm Dev Call for Thursday, February 28th, 2019. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just how this works for those who are maybe watching or coming for the first time, we'll generally start off with announcements and then do stand-ups from everyone who's a core maintainer and anyone who's in the community working on something that they'd like to report on. They'll have any discussion items, and then at the end, we always just make sure we give out assignments for the week. From the announcement side, the only one we have written down is that Helm 2.13.0 was released yesterday, a Raspberry Caramel Latte edition, which sounds a little not pleasing to me, but that's okay. Anyway, that's out. Go try it out. Available at a GitHub near you. And if you have any issues, make sure to let us know. Are there any other announcements that people didn't get written down on the agenda that they would like to bring up now?
I guess I'll just say that the 2.13.0 is the first actual release version that is PGP signed. So we have signing in place now.
Yay for security. Let's see. And now we'll move on to stand-up. Michelle is out, and she already reported in there that she worked on the Helm v3 testing stuff, so that's in there. As for me, I was unable to get to what I wanted to do this last week, but today I will be trying to get through a PR that someone in the community wanted me to get through, and I have a little bit of a backlog to dig myself out of tomorrow. So I'm trying to just get caught up with things, and then I think that's it. So let's push it off to Josh.
So I am trying to dive deep into Lua right now. I had a conversation with Brian on Monday, kind of about the current state of things. It sounds like there is no plan, and that we need to plan for the actual, I guess, API of writing a chart in Lua. So it sounds like we know we're going to use Lua, but we don't know what that will actually look like. So I haven't done much, but I'm going to try experimenting with embedding the Go Lua engine in Helm 3 and starting to play with things like that. But I mean, I'm guessing there's going to be like globals, like values and things like we have today. So let's see, Matt Fisher.
So what I've been doing for the last week, so I was helping out with the release stuff. So that's what I've been doing for the majority of it. So kind of going through the PGP signing process, thanks with help with Matt Farina, figuring out like a good make script to go through the whole process of fetching down the release binaries, signing them, and then re-uploading it up to GitHub. So that's all in there. It's right now kind of a manual process, so eventually I'd like to make that a little bit better for the next person who has to go through, but it works. So there's that. And then the other part of the work that I've been doing for the last week has been working on the Helm 3 action package refactoring. So in the master, or not in master, but in dev v3, there is package Helm, package HAPI, which is the gRPC, or which used to be the gRPC proto files, essentially. And essentially what we were using that in Helm 3 was just like we were using the structs, and tiller, or in package tiller. And so all of those packages are kind of more or less useless in Helm 3's context because we don't have a client server architecture. So I've been working and reworking that into like an event-based system inside of the action package. So then when you invoke Helm status, you just get a client that will work against Helm status and be able to run commands and auto-generate those feature flags and everything else. So it's a little bit more portable, or not portable, it's more maintainable in the future. So just kind of going through that and good refactoring. Let's go with Butcher.
Quickly, Adam is out for part of the week. They had an unforeseen family thing come up. So I know, Martin, that might have slowed you down getting some stuff done. So apologize about that. The last week I did a Kubernetes meetup in Boulder, and we saw the reactive ops demo with all the stuff they've done with Helm. They'd be interesting to look at as people who might be interested in weighing in on the actions package, because they basically do that now with Tiller. So I've been focused mainly on just kind of tracking down various details, and I think the Helm trademark stuff is all done with CNCF now, and we have, we're making progress at a pretty good pace on the Helm 3 work at this point. So that's it.
Who's next, Butcher?
Sorry, got interrupted there. I will pass it on to Brian H. I assume is Brian Hardock, right?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, not turn the camera on and be all shady and stuff.
Having a bad hair day. So I've been working on the Lua compiler. I kind of switched gears around Thursday last week after talking to Josh. And so yesterday evening, I got the Lua compiler compiling the conformance tests and then executing that against the core Lua implementation as a measure to evaluate the code generation from the Go Lua compiler. So that's really cool to me anyway, because that will eliminate the Lua C dependency in Helm 3. And for the alpha release, it'll be up on GitHub in the next few days, as I'm kind of moving some code around to integrate the Lua C or the Go Lua compiler and the Lua runtime that I've been working on. And then next week I'm going to sync up with Josh again, and we're gonna chat Lua and Helm. But that's what I'm doing. I'll pass it down to Martin. Do you want to go?
Sure, thanks. So this week I was working as Bug Sherpa or issue Sherpa, so got through a good few. Yeah, is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So got through, got some PRs closed. So thanks to Matt Fisher for jumping in and putting the tags on it or closing out any ones that needed to be closed. Also doing some PR reviews and monitoring the Slack channel. That's about it. Just one question on that. I just wonder at some stage, maybe as I go along, maybe get a chance to get access to doing the tags or closing issues if they can be closed, rather than someone having to jump in and help out. It might speed things up. So I'll let that out to you guys, folks. Oh yeah, hand over to.
I can take it next because I haven't gone yet.
Yeah.
So I've been doing mostly reviews, but the other thing is shortly here I'll be putting up a pull request for the Helm security review process. After we had an incident earlier this year, we didn't really have a process or any documentation around this stuff, and so I'm working on the documentation for it. It's also one of those things, in order to become a graduated CNCF project, we have to hit the CII best practices and get the badge, and you need a security policy as part of that process. So hopefully, actually probably later today, I'll put up the first draft for folks to review to the community repo. It's mostly done. I'm just working through some people who are on the current list who haven't been responding. And so I'm tracking down bodies to see if they actually want to be on, or if they've got filters set up or something else, in order to get that ball going. That's me. I think that's everybody here. So we can.
I saw Adam's on.
Adam, you're on now, I see. Or I see at least your phone is on. Did you want to give a stand-up? Do you have anything to say? Maybe he's just lurking in the background. I will pass it back to Mr. Fisher then.
The phone has a mind of its own. He's probably just listening in from the car. So,
Or maybe it dialed in on its own and he doesn't even know.
Taylor,
Yep.
back to you for moderating.
Okay, so we are going to move on to the discussion, unless there's anyone else in the community who'd like to give a stand-up about something they're working on.
Yeah, could I do a quick stand-up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this week I was working on the schematized values proposal. I think this thing is actually mostly just about finished. The only thing I'm missing is I'm not sure where to. I have schema generation. The feature is complete. It's just that I don't know where exactly to put that. I don't know if it should be done on the Helm install or if anyone has any input on that. But aside from that, this thing is just about complete.
Yeah, so for the JSON schema generation stuff, I don't think we've actually worked through with the charts team necessarily if there is a best practice for a JSON schema to come out of the gate with a values file. Farina, do you know if there's been any discussion about that or any kind of like musings about a JSON schema for backing those values by default? Or
By default, I don't think we have. We would love to have a JSON schema in place. A little bit of research was done, but we didn't find any good Go packages to make some of this easy for us to work with. And we haven't really figured out the whole JSON schema. Doing it by default, I think we're going to start with opt-in probably and see whether we can get these things going by default, because it does help with things like automatically generating UIs, which I know the kubeapps folks would like. It lets you do a certain amount of validation in Helm, things like that for values, stuff like that. We hadn't dug too deep into how to do this yet, just that we'd wanted to.
okay. So if I'm assuming correctly, that means that so we wouldn't necessarily want to create a JSON schema by default in Helm create, though some kind of documentation on saying, hey, if you want to use schematized value files for Helm 3, this is how you can set up your JSON schema so that it can validate against values. That might be a good practice. However, we haven't gotten to the point of rewriting the documentation yet to accommodate many of those things. As in like the stuff that we've been working on, the refactoring for Helm 3, like what's changed and whatnot. So I think that was something that I would like to take on as a next action item, is to actually get back to docs and figure out what has changed since we diverged from Helm 2. So maybe that might be a good dovetail into what you're working on, Ian.
Okay.
Yeah,
just to figure out like what we need to do to add schematized value files to Helm charts.
and it would be nice to have a command that could take your values file and try to generate a JSON schema for it. That would be a really nice helper, because you want to lower the barrier to entry, and that's something we'd like to do just to make it easy for people to do this.
Right. Okay.
But that can come in. It can come in as multiple pull requests, multiple stages, whatever.
I think the problem with that, and I think Ian, you probably pointed it out a little bit, was because we're parsing the data and getting back a map string interface. That might be difficult to work with because we're not getting strict types, as in like we're not getting strings. We don't know if it's an int. We don't know what it is. It's just an interface type. So I think it might be a little bit difficult to generate that with the current SDK. So I think we could punt that down the road, but I think that might be a little bit more difficult to tackle right out of the bat or right out of the gate, unless we can somehow infer types from the YAML parser.
We can get a little bit of types, but we can't actually get, like, we can get number, we can get string, we can get object array, but as far as things like number versus int, we can't really do that. We're limited to what the JSON unmarshaller gives us, which is only like 5 or 6 types. So
wouldn't there be value in giving people a skeleton to work with, though? So I mean, even if it called everything a string to start out with, might kind of help people kickstart the process.
Right, and that's kind of what I've got right now. It'll give a number or a string or an object, and that way a user could go in and modify it to make it more specific, add descriptions or minimums, requireds, all those kinds of things that come with JSON schema. So it's an option.
Awesome, thank you. And then Nikhil, you just joined in. Did you want to drop in your stand-up?
Hey guys, sorry I was running late this morning. Got pulled into something else. I was at a customer offsite this week, so I really didn't have much time to look into anything Helm related. But wanted to start diving into more Helm 3 stuff. Just haven't had a chance to do that yet. So that's me. Once again, sorry, running late. So I'm not sure who's gone and who's not, but
everyone's you caught the very tail end. We're just about to move on to discussion.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. And so now we're on the discussion. The first item on here from, I think it's Martin, was around V3 contributor work.
Yeah, sure. Just asking around at the moment, we don't have a backlog for V3 work. And I suppose what is the best way to do that? Or because I know there's a lot of refactoring going on at the moment, so it might be quite difficult.
We have the project board that's out there.
Oh yeah, but there's no backlog left, Taylor.
Okay. I'll have to do that in a bit. Can anyone speak to it? Adam's not here, so
yeah, I can speak to it a little bit. So Adam has been out for a little bit, at least for this week, just for unforeseen circumstances. However, the two of us have been just kind of working away at some of the big refactoring work. And I think we're finally coming to a critical point where the client work for me is almost getting to the point of finished, as in like Adam and I can finally pair together and figure out if this is the right thing. We can bring in the people. So like Matt Butcher mentioned, some people over at Reactive Ops were interested in the action package. So they could also help out and see if that kind of feedback is useful for them. That has basically been blocking the rest of the work from going through because that touches pretty much every single interaction with the API. The other stuff that Adam has been working on, which is the builder stuff, has to deal with the Kubernetes API. So he's touching the other most significant part of Helm. So in reality, it's been really the two of us trying to work and get those things out before we can really start getting through some of the bigger stuff. So what I've been doing now that I've finished that client package, I'm still kind of playing around with it. But I've been looking at the V3 board, and when Adam gets back, I would like to go with him and pair on a session to do the project board as well as go through like the V3 issue list and try and figure out that backlog so we can go through this. Something else that was also mentioned is that it would be really useful to have some kind of sync up outside of this dev call, to have a Helm 3 specific dev call or something along those lines, just to kind of get through what are those action items that we want to do before we go into an alpha. So I think that would be useful to have at that discussion to have would be very useful as well, because I mean, like, with Josh working on the Helm chart stuff and then also working now with the Lua stuff and all that, it would be great to synchronize everything without having to talk about issue triaging and everything else that's happening on Helm 2 side. So we can have a little bit more of a focused discussion on what's happening in Helm 3. But I'll have to figure that out. Yeah, so a backlog grooming session separate from the weekly meeting. Yeah, I think that would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, just like an hour-long thing where, I mean, I've done this like in person, but like, you know, everyone puts the Post-it notes on in the certain columns and stuff, and then we talk about the Post-it notes.
Yeah, so I think that would be really useful to have. So when Adam is back, maybe we can talk about that, and we could probably bring it up in the either in the CNCF users mailing list or something, and talk about scheduling a time where we can all talk about like the product or the product roadmap and start working on the backlog and figure those things out. Because there's a lot of issues to go through, and there's a lot more PR stuff to go through. So it'd be good to.
But I think like what Martin's saying though is great. Like, there's so many people right now who are like, I really want to chip in. People like Ian are looking at things like the schema files that we're not even thinking about, right? So
yeah,
I think it's still some conversion of the original Helm 3 proposal, which is pretty much stale at this point, and what's actually happening.
Yeah, and I'll definitely take the blame on that one for just like not getting that kind of just the coordination of going through the Helm 3 stuff and figuring that out.
No, it's not.
As
Not
we're
a
slowly
nitpick.
coming to a head with all this
It's not
stuff.
a nitpick.
So
Yeah,
So,
there's no need to be blamed. Like it's more a case of like, all right, how can we help out? How we can move along? Because like when you're doing a lot of work and you're stuck in a lot of refactoring, it's quite difficult. And then maybe things are starting to come out now, and rather, yeah, those bits can go out to side, and as we as contributors do bits by bits, it might help as it goes along. So yeah, I don't really I'm open to whatever way you want to go with it.
So how about this? Because there's some folks who want to just get moving. Is there a chance, Matt, that you could this week spend maybe a half an hour going over, okay, here's a list of simple things that we need done that some folks could jump on, and just maybe create a handful of issues and stick them in the backlog? Whatever those basic things are, whether it's doc updates or just something that we know needs to be done that's outside of that main loop, because I'm sure there's some things out there. Could you maybe throw a half an hour at doing that today or this week?
So the reason why I've been waiting on Adam a little bit to help out with that is because Adam has been feeling a little bit anxious when it comes to other people, or not other people, like myself, for example, going through the Helm 3 issue list without at least passing through him what are some changes that we want to do, because he does want to be involved and he wants to be making sure that we're all aware of what kind of architectural changes we're working on at the time. So that's why I've been holding off. But however, I can take a look at getting a small list of easy things for Helm 3 and then getting that list compiled and then talk with him about it, or just like post it somewhere and then say, what do you think about that list? We can figure out from there. So does that seem like a workable solution, at least for the time? It's just a matter of trying to keep everyone in sync while we're going through such a major refactoring. Cool.
Okay. Last one, I think it's another one from Martin, is good first issues.
Yeah, I'll keep this really quick. We have about 9 of them, and I would say about maybe 6 or 7 are quite stale. So maybe it's time I'll try and go through them and put a bit of comments and maybe bop it off to you folks and maintainers and see what you think. Should it be closed out? Should it be got rid of? Why are they still down as first issues? So why I'm kind of doing that is I noticed the trend this week and this happens anyway in open source projects, where there was a lot of we'll say spell checking PRs coming in, and they were kind of being broken up into separate ones and made, spread out, so that maybe and it'll be around probably the V3 work as well when we get some of the more first issues so that people can pull off. So I'll go through that list and I'll provide more information for next week. Okay.
So I'm looking at the list of the good first issues here. I'll quickly post the link here so everyone else can see what Martin's referring to. So that's the list, right? The 9 open things that are all labeled with good first issue. I'm going to assume yes. Looking at the list, it seems like there's some things in here that are a little bit stale, but they're all things that seem to be things that would be nice to have. It's just been a matter of so we haven't, or I in particular have not gone out and tried and closed out good first issues. The reasoning for me not doing that necessarily has been good first issues are a good way for people to come into the project and to first try and play with it. So if I go and make a PR against those good first issues and just close them out immediately, then nobody's really going to have any easy way to get into Helm. It's all going to be hard issues to solve. So I'm not sure if they're stale, because some of them are docs, some of them are there's an easy bug here in the error output, or there's an easy one of some simple functionality like adding warnings or whatnot. So I think those are all still useful. It's just a matter of going through them and getting someone to work on them if they're interested in doing that work.
Yeah, I'll do a quick audit through it, and if there's still useful ones there, I'll put comments into it, or we'll find some way of putting it out maybe to community and say, look, here's a lot of good first issues. It's just one or two I looked at seem to have got tangents of their own. But I'll go through it again. I meant to parse them before I got in, but I got caught with another issue that just took up. So yeah, I'll try and get better information for the next day. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. That was all for the discussion items. Was there anything else burning? We only have like 3 minutes, but was there something burning?
Well, yeah, Ken in the chat was asking really quick for an OCI update, and I have to say I have nothing to share. I've been kind of exhausted with that topic. I didn't make the call yesterday. I don't know if anyone was there, if there's anything new.
I think I made the call, and I think Farina was also in the call as well.
Not yesterday.
Not yesterday. Okay, but Ken, you were also in the call yesterday. Was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about?
No, I didn't want to talk about it necessarily. Just didn't know if the rest of the folks on the call needed an update on where that kind of landed. So,
okay.
It basically was. It sounded like they agreed to put the media type configs in at the one layer, but they still had maybe a problem with the layer above it with the index stuff. But it sounded like they're starting to kind of surround on a solution that might work for both of these things, for Helm, for CNAB, for all of these things, that allowed essentially the repo operators to decide what they want to actually support going forward, and then just indicate it via an error code or something like that if it's not supported.
And maybe this is my confusion on it. There is the OCI index you can use at the top level. And I thought everyone was okay with using that. That was originally pitched like 4 or 6 weeks ago or something as being the top layer. It was either the manifest or the index at the top. Josh, you probably remember.
So yes, yes. This is Steve and Jimmy's thing, right?
Yeah, Steve and Jimmy's thing.
So last week on the CNAB call on Wednesday, someone from Docker basically came in and said, "Oh, we're going to just do the OCI to CNAB way of things," which is, I think, is not that way. So
it's not using an index or manifest at the top, the OCI one. It's using something different.
So the way I understood it yesterday, I'm still new to this, but the way I understood it was the manifest would have a media type that then you could say, hey, this is a vnd.whatever.helm, something or other. The index at the top did not have a media config at that layer. And they were talking about, well, do we still use annotations at that layer or something else? So that one's still unsolved.
Okay, I can go stick my nose back into that one. We had a solution worked out a while ago that I thought everybody was good with, but obviously things changed again.
Well, maybe it did. Maybe it's just my misunderstanding of it. So, like I said.
I'll go stick my nose back in and see if we know. We just need a document that is clear and everybody can be on the same page about. I can try and do that later today. I got another meeting I have to jump to now.
I'll take care of assignments.
So I think it's time, but I think as well, to close out this thing quickly, was that some of these items were also discussed during the call yesterday. So there was discussion on the index. There was discussion on that media type config stuff and how they expose it to stuff. So it would be useful for anyone who is interested in going back to the call to at least go and look at the call notes. Because some of these topics were discussed, like Ken was.
I'll see if I can grab the notes, and I'll even paste them into the notes here, so somebody can grab them.
Perfect.
Because there's a log of the chat and everything else. So.
Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks like Steve heard OCI across the country and joined the call.
Yeah, sorry, I just joined late. Was there a question on it? Because I know Matt was.
No. We were just trying to fill everyone in on what the current state is. But we need him to go further down that road. So Matt Farina offered to do moderator. Does anyone want to do notes?
I can do notes again since I didn't really get a chance to do it. My apologies. I was only part way through this meeting, so.
Thanks, Nikhil.
Yep.
And for Sherpa, I can do the Sherpa. So I'm doing the project, or I've got that action item to do the project planning. So while I'm doing that, I can also try and do some triaging at the same time. So yeah, I think this week will be good for triaging.
Awesome. Well, Taylor's out. That concludes the call. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.